let's let some stereotypes be things of the past and let's move forward because women are doing great things. Women are change makers, regardless of their ethnicity, their race, their geographical location, and all of that. Let's just allow people, women in particular, to be the best that they can be and enjoy what they bring to the table.
Welcome to the Care to Lead podcast. Today, I am beyond excited to introduce to you Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. She's a pastoral counselor in private practice and author, a cancer survivor, and host of talk radio show Daily Spark with Dr. Angela and its award-winning sister show, Daily Spark TV. As editor-in-chief of Pastoral magazine, this bi-monthly magazine features articles on lifestyle and passion for purpose. And I'm really excited about this interview today. And Dr. Angela, where would you even like to begin? I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here, Cynthia. Thank you so much for the invitation. And it is just awesome to be in good company. You are a woman who is doing awesome and amazing things as well. So thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you today.
So I liked in your article, you talked about how you got started, like very, very young, knowing what you wanted to do. I'd like to unpack that story a little more, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I was around 16. Well, if I back up a little bit, as a little kid, my parents sent me to private Christian school. I loved it. I soaked it all up. And in part, do I believe it helped me become the person I am today? Absolutely. But I also had a love of things dealing with one's faith or spirituality or just the philosophy of what is our connection between ourselves and God. So when I was around 16 years old, I had a conversation with my then pastor and said, I want to do this, and this. I love helping people with their problems, with their issues, with their concern. I have a listening ear. I'm also not a judgmental person because I just understand that stuff happens and you want to be your best. And sometimes you don't present your best, but it doesn't mean that you don't want to be your best. And then that faith aspect of being able to help people understand that God, or some people may say source or a great spirit, is bigger than just what we read in a book or from a historical point of view. But there can be this really great relationship there. How do I put that all together? And thank God, he said, "You sounds like you want to be a pastoral counselor." And I went, "Oh, okay, what do I do?" And he says, "Well, you'll also be an ordained minister, but you'll really have a focus on the counseling aspect and be able to combine those two." And make that really long story short, here we are today. I am able to do both of those things. But more importantly, if we had to give it a label, and holistic label, I would say that just being a person of evangelism, just someone trying to say, there's someone here that cares about you simply because you are a fellow human being. And how can I help you along this spiritual journey that we're all on?
So you do a lot of work with women and empowering women. Is that accurate?
Yes. Being someone who enjoys women's ministry, it really kind of gets me on fire to see women wanting to be involved in community, being involved in politics, being involved even just in their families and having a voice to try to make sure that their families are empowered as well. As women, we wear so many hats, and I want to give a space for women to feel safe to talk about what's going on in our lives, but also the permission to say, how do we solve what needs to be solved, and use these wonderful talents and gifts that we have in a positive way.
Are there any stories that you can share that you were able to put someone in empower a woman in a way that made a drastic difference in her life that you're able to share with us today?
I can, and I won't share her name just in case she doesn't want all of that out there, just for privacy's sake. But I was seeing her in a counseling capacity, and she made such great progress. And she got to the point where she no longer needed counseling, but more so coaching. Just that positive person, that cheerleader in your corner, that accountability partner to keep you going. Fast forward a few years, and she comes back and she says, I want to write a book. And I know that you have authored a book. Can you help me? Of course I can. In helping her write that book, she was able to then parlay that into a nonprofit where she helps teen girls that are dealing with hardships in their lives, be it that they are being raised by a single parent or they have both parents, but their parents are perhaps struggling. But just really focusing in on teen girls and helping them be the best that they can be. With that being said, that's about as much as I can share, but that's one person that I am just so excited every time I see her on social media and the girls are traveling and they're doing stuff where someone is saying, I got a copy of the book. It's almost like my mother heart, like my sister heart just beats and I go, yes, she is walking in the purpose for her life. And it's really exciting to see that happen.
That is awesome. And you touched on something that I want to talk about a little bit more. And the reason that I even initiated this series in Authority Magazine about empathy, it stems from my own book that's coming out in March. And the title of my book is called Dark Drivers. And there are these hidden experiences and memories and traumas that have happened in childhood that are still affecting the way you behave today. And what you said kind of correlates very closely to that because as a coach, I'm often presented with clients who are struggling with these things, and we uncover them a lot of the times in our coaching. And there's this line where I say, okay, this is going to require a counselor. And sometimes that therapy and that coaching can work so well in tandem. But I think a lot of coaches try to maybe go too far into the counseling, and counselors, they can also coach. But I think when there's this separation and in tandem working, it can just be so powerful for clients. Do you agree with that?
I do wholeheartedly. And you're right. I think that each professional needs to know their boundary, right? Because when you know that this is as far as I can take you, then you understand that handing them off to a different person isn't saying that you are lacking in any way. In fact, it says, I care about you. I professionally want you to succeed. So I'm going to give you to the next person that can take you those next few steps. If we look at even our celebrities or entertainers, the person that they start off with, when they're a teen, isn't always the person or the group that they're with when they're in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s, because who they are changes. And the services that initial person can provide doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be for the long ride. So it isn't a negative if you have to hand someone off to someone else. It just shows in my mind that you care for them and you want them to have all of the resources that they can have.
So I also think there's another piece to that, though, as well, because it's not always just a handoff, because there are different things happening, especially when it comes to dark drivers, because sometimes a dark driver is something just really simple that can just be resolved once you identify where it came from. So, for example, I had a client who was constantly had to have the last word, just constantly, and no one wanted to work with this person, because it seemed obnoxious and annoying. And he was brilliantly intelligent, but because of this, no one wanted to work with him. And as his coach, we peeled back that onion over multiple sessions and we realized that he was the youngest of 7 children and he never was heard. So he just got in his thing, in order to be heard, I have to be the last one to speak. I have to speak the loudest. And as an adult in a corporate setting, that was really obnoxious. So in that sense, yes, we were able to uncover that dark driver and we were able to continue to work forward. Whereas I have sometimes when you uncover a dark driver with someone and it's deep, it's a childhood wound, it's abuse, it's something else, where I will encourage them to get counseling to heal those past wounds. And at the same time, they continue working with me to how do I navigate through my corporate life and my executive challenges day to day while this is healing. So it's kind of a really nice tandem, in my opinion.
And it absolutely can be. A really great example of that is procrastination. Mm-hmm. So some people procrastinate for the reasons that most people think. It's a little bit of laziness, or they just don't want to do it. They're not gung-ho. They're not fired up about the project. So they're kind of dragging their feet. But the flip side of that coin is that procrastination is also a trauma response. If something has gone on in that person, especially in their childhood when they were younger than 10, then they are still holding on to that trauma and may not be aware of it. So in slow walking to do something that they really don't want to do, it is directly connected to slow walking as a child and not wanting to repeatedly be exposed to that trauma. So you are absolutely correct. Sometimes it is a multi-layer onion there that we have to peel back, and we have to give ourselves permission to say it's okay for me to deal with these things and still move forward. You might still be amazing at your career path and be able to do your job and do it with many successes, but you still have this little slice of pie over here that you have to deal with because you are trying to grow and be the best that you can be. And once you're able to deal with that, many times that is the missing piece in so many other areas of a person's life. Or sometimes it simply just heals you as a person and allows you to settle in the person that you are today.
Absolutely. So what are some of the unique challenges that you faced in your career and how did you overcome them?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I am a person that tries to stay as positive as I can. I know the power of positivity. So I will phrase this in a positive way. So I have had some setbacks because of other people's understandings of who I may be. What do I mean? Oh, you're a woman. So that means that you can or cannot do a particular thing. Oh, you are a person of color. That means you can or cannot do certain things. It has been an interesting journey, but it has also been very eye-opening. So I try to take those experiences and address them in some of the talks that I give and say, let's do away with some of the outdated ways of thinking. Let's let some stereotypes be things of the past and let's move forward because women are doing great things. Women are change makers, regardless of their ethnicity, their race, their geographical location, and all of that. Let's just allow people, women in particular, to be the best that they can be and enjoy what they bring to the table. So that's how I'll answer that.
I love that. And I think ageism is another really prominent thing that is much more prevalent for women than for men.
Absolutely. And especially as we age. And a lot of times it is tied directly to the societal understanding of what beauty is. So as young women, we are in one way a very beautiful being because we are still young. as we grow and mature, some people don't want to acknowledge a wrinkle here or, perhaps a few pounds here or there. As everyone grows and matures, we have physical changes. And because of that, women unfortunately do get the short end of the stick there. But what I don't think people realize is, as with anyone, with age, hopefully, comes that maturity and that life experience that you can only get now that you are a 40 plus, 50 plus year old woman. And you have so much more knowledge that you are now able to share than, of course, we did when we were in our 20s. We were just starting out then. We didn't even know what we didn't know yet. So now that we are older, we are bringing so much more to the table, I believe.
And that brings me back to the topic of empathy, because in order to have really good empathy, you're going to base that empathy based on things you've experienced, pain that you've experienced. You're going to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You can do it intellectually and have empathy, but when you can do it viscerally, when you can feel that pain, I know that you're a cancer survivor. You're going to have massive empathy for someone else. You're really going to understand their place. So it's the same thing with people as you're getting older. You've experienced so much more of life. So you can truly be empathetic with that person you're listening to, more so than someone who is just understanding empathy, understanding that I need to try to feel what you feel and be empathetic on an intellectual basis.
You are so right. And many times I think that people feel that they have to have had an exact experience and able to be empathetic. And I somewhat disagree with that. If your situation has been similar, of course, that's going to give you a certain understanding of what the other person has gone through. But if the bottom line is this person is experiencing a pain that is breaking their heart, if they are experiencing an emotion that is causing them to feel confused or out of sorts, then if you've ever experienced anything that has made you feel that way, then you can be empathetic toward what they're going through. So I think if people kind of slow down sometimes and just be in the moment with that person, it allows them that bond. It allows them a moment to say, oh my goodness, how would I feel if I were in this person's shoes?
Mm-hmm.
I ask people many times and say, who wants their family to be in danger? If you want your family to be in danger, raise your hand or stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Who does? Absolutely no one. If you wished that harm would befall your community, okay, stand up. Come on. Somebody wants that, right? No one ever stands up. So if that's the common denominator, why do you think that person wants harm in their community or in their household? They don't. So let's join, let's combine, let's start where we overlap. And if that common denominator can be the bridge that gets us to a positive and successful conclusion, then let's start with that place of empathy, and then we can work everything else out.
I agree wholeheartedly. We're speaking of like empathy and experiences. Back when I was doing my undergrad work, I didn't go to undergrad until I had kids because just the way life went. And so I was in my early 30s maybe, and been married since I was like 19. So I'd been married for a little while. And I went to a Christian college, and we had to go to chapel. And every week in chapel, they'd bring in guest speakers. And the one week they brought in this marriage couple, like to talk about marriage and about how to make marriage really successful. But they were like 22 and they'd been married like 4 months. And it was like, talk to me in 10 years. Like I had no, I don't want to say respect. I had enormous respect for them as human beings, but the validity of what they were saying didn't register. Whereas with some wisdom, some age, some experience, I'm really curious. I don't know if I could go back 20 years and find them, see if they're still married. I'd love to know that. But
You are so right there. And with anything, if we can find that mentor, or we can simply just have a conversation with someone who has that time, that wisdom, that knowledge, then it's going to change your trajectory, right? Because they are going to tell you stuff that you didn't even know that you would experience at a particular time. So you're right, especially with marriage. I think that if your grandparents are still married, of course, if your parents are still married, but if your grandparents are still married, ask them, what did it take to get this far? Now, even if that one grandparent has passed away, you can still ask that surviving grandparent, tell me about your daily routine, or tell me about something that the other did that really helped you or said, I love you. Those little things that are going to help make a difference. I gave an example one day and I said, I knew that one of the things that I liked, well, we were just dating at the time. He was not my husband, but we were just dating at the time. And I said, one thing that I really appreciated was every time I prepared a meal or I gave him something, he always said, thank you. Now, that might not be a really big deal, but from someone who is a Southerner, manners is really important, right? So you don't assume that someone is going to do something. You hope they do, but you want to show that gratitude for what they have done. So that very small thing, and I think maybe 10 years in, I said, hey, hon, do you know that you've thanked me for every breakfast, every lunch, every dinner, every snack? And he's like, I did. I said, you did. Thank you for thanking me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that might not be a really big deal for anyone else, but it showed his gratitude, his appreciation for the time that I spent making a meal with love. So it is truly those little things, is the years in our personal lives, and I think in our professional lives, those nuggets of wisdom that we can pass along that will help the next generation understand what it takes to truly be successful in anything that they're doing.
That's interesting. My husband and I just returned from Hawaii last week, and my husband is over a decade older than me, and he is 100% Chinese. So his culture and his mannerisms, his like, I love you, and I'll tell you if that ever changes. Like, he's not a lovey-dovey kind of guy. So those little thank yous and everything just aren't like our common denominators. So sometimes I find myself wondering, does he even care? But on our way back from Hawaii, I ended up bumped from our flight, and I had to stay an extra night. Life's tough, to spend an extra night in Maui. And his, like, this switch turned on of caring for me. He was going to make sure where I was staying. He was going to make sure, and like, he just went into this, I'm going to make sure this woman is safe. I'm going to make sure this woman has everything she needs. He's handing me money out of his wallet. You take that. And he would have been happy to be the one to stay, but he's a physician. He had to get back. So there was all these things that happened in a 15-minute thing that showed me just how much, and it reminds me that, 5 languages of love, but that showed me just how much he cares that I don't see every day. Like, so it's maybe not all those thank yous, but you just have to remember that they're being who they are, and they're going to show it in their way.
And that would be that piece of wisdom that a mom and a grandmother would pass on, right? Where that grandchild may say, Granddad is kind of huff. He's kind of a grump or kind of person. Like, how do you deal with that? And grandmother says, oh my goodness, because you didn't know him when he was 16 and he was this way. Or he wasn't like that until he came home from the war. There are life experiences that many times make a person the way that they are, along with, like you said, cultural understandings. If you know that a particular culture does a particular thing, you understand not to take that personal. But if you don't know those little things, it can cause you to maneuver where you didn't have to. But when we pass on that generation, that generational knowledge, then it truly helps. Now, not trying to be a preachy person here, but we know that scripture reminds us, for our grandmothers to train up the next generation to help them. And to me, that in part is that understanding. Pass on your knowledge so that the next generation, their lives can be a touch easier because they have that gained experience and wisdom from you. They're still going to do what they're going to do, as we all have chosen to walk our path. But in the back of your mind, many times you can hear a loved one or even a friend, a colleague, or a classmate saying words of wisdom, and that resonates with you in that moment. Maybe it didn't mean anything then, but now you're in the moment, and that recall can save you time, pain, just be able to put you in a different place because now you have a different understanding.
Which makes me want to ask you, if you were to be able to give one piece of advice to a younger version of yourself, say 16, what would that piece of advice be?
It's so funny. I always ask this question of my guests.
Oh, do you really?
But now that I'm on the other side, it's like, oh no, what am I going to say? I would say to be patient, to continue to walk the path, but to enjoy the view.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to explain that a little bit more. So many times I feel that we are jogging, we're running toward the next thing, right? We have, as women leaders in particular, we have a certain amount of additional pressure on us to produce, to just live up to the standard. With that being said, I feel that many times we are running. Okay, great. I did that. Check it off. On to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. I would tell myself to remember to enjoy the journey. We are going to get there. I don't mean slow walk it. I mean, enjoy the birds, the flowers, the breeze, the sun on your face. Take in all of those things because that is a part of the journey. It is a part of the memory of your journey to success. So don't run to the next thing. Get there expeditiously, but enjoy the things along the way so that when you are here and in the now, you can share those stories and say, I remember when this is what happened. This is what I did. This was a win. This was a loss. This was a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And really be able to package that in a way that can help someone else.
I think that's really powerful. And even to add to that, I think as you look at yourself in the now, love yourself, your body, who you are today, because a decade from now, you're going to look back at pictures and you're going to say, wow, I wish I had those thighs now that I hated 10 years ago. I wish that I had that body now. I wish that I had that health now. Love who you are right now, because who you are right now is perfect, and your body and your shape, all of it, it's perfect. And it's what you have right now. So appreciate it, because a lot of times we wish so much that we were something else. And we don't appreciate what we have right now until 10 years down the road. And we look back and say, crap, I was pretty good back then. Now I'm 10 years older. I would love to be back then. And so I try to keep that in mind, like every birthday. It's like, stop complaining about these few wrinkles, because 10 years from now, you're going to have a few more. And I think that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. I think that you're definitely onto something. And as a cancer survivor, and I think it doesn't matter what type of cancer you have experienced. I do believe that most cancer survivors will all agree with the common denominator answer, and that is the person that we are today. We can look in the mirror and we love that person for however they are, however they appear in the mirror. As someone dealing with breast cancer, one of the side effects of the toxicity of the medicine, though it heals us, we also lose our hair. It causes us to have blotchy skin. Many of us have had to take a steroid to help boost our immune system, so on and so forth, right? So we remember those moments where we looked in the mirror and perhaps didn't like that person, but we've grown to understand that even that person looking back was a beautiful person in the making because we were a person that was victoriously walking the path. It was hard. It was arduous. It was something that you would never wish on anyone. So my sisters in pink, we understand what each other have gone through. So I think when we see each other, we do have a tendency to be like, look at you, you're so beautiful, because we understand where we started, what we've gone through, and where we are right now. So you're right. Anyone who hasn't gone through a life-changing experience, oh my goodness, if you don't learn to love the person that you are, stop allowing others to tell you that you are too something or not enough of something, because you are the best version of yourself right now. If there's room to improve, great. If there isn't, appreciate where you are. And I agree with you there. So many times in our 20s, we look at one little pimple and go, all is lost. And it's like, I promise you, it isn't. It really isn't.
Well, it sounds like through the cancer journey, like it's hard to be appreciative of what you're going through while you're going through it. It's hard to appreciate the beauty in that human being at that time because you're just going through it and trying to survive. But it sounds like when you look back, you're seeing that beauty in a whole different way and appreciating that experience. Not that it's positive, not that you want to go through it again, but you're appreciating that journey. Am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. And in part, it is because of societal understandings of what beauty is, especially for women. So we understand that a woman is prettier when her hair is together, her makeup is done properly, she's dressed in a way that presents herself correctly to be proper and true according to your society. And with breast cancer, when you are then stripped of all of those things that society tells you makes you beautiful, you have to reach down within yourself and recall those things that either your parents have told you or you found according to your faith, that beauty is fleeting, right? But instead, it is the person that you are inside is what helps make you a beautiful person. With that, that's where you are. I don't think that someone dealing with cancer looks in the mirror and says, oh my goodness, I'm so ugly today. Not that type of understanding, but it's just you look and you go, oh my goodness. Oh, my face is so swollen today. Or my skin is starting to change in texture or in color. You just observe those physical changes that you're going through. But as you start to come out on the other side, you then realize I'm starting to become more of myself. Mm-hmm. So as those beautiful things start to come back, you have a new understanding of what it means to be a beautiful woman. It was not your eyebrows or the color of your hair or that shade of lipstick that you wore that made you beautiful. It was your heart that made you beautiful. The other things are just kind of accessories for our bodies that help adorn us a particular way. And we try to then take care of this new person that we get to present to the world and make sure that we are as healthy as we can be.
So what advice would you give to men that love women and want them to feel beautiful? Because women are our hardest critics. Like the men who love us are less hard on us than we are on ourselves. So what advice would you give to a man to help his woman, or person in his life, feel beautiful all the time?
Yeah, that's always a question that we have to deal with in couples counseling, because we do have a tendency sometimes to send mixed messages, right? When a man says you are beautiful in your jeans and t-shirt with a fresh face and your hair's only kind of just been finger combed, not really curled or anything, and he says, you are so beautiful, please believe him, because a man isn't going to tell you something if he doesn't believe it to be true. Like, he's not going to blow the smoke, right? Where your girlfriend may say, how do I look? Oh, yeah, I like it. Because she just doesn't want to make you feel bad, or, bring attention to the 10 pounds that you've gained or the 10 pounds that you've lost and you didn't want to lose them, whatever. But a man is going to be very truthful with you. So if he says that you are amazing and beautiful, then believe him. Learn to accept the compliment of who you are first thing in the morning. It doesn't mean that he doesn't like looking at you with all of the adornment, with all of the accessory that we put on to present our best self, but allow him to be able to be truthful with you and kind of vulnerable too. Because many times the response of that woman is, you think I look good like this? What's wrong with you? Like, I don't have any makeup on, these ratty jeans. And we almost can be disrespectful to what he's trying to share. In his honesty, he's trying to tell you, I love you, just you. Thanks for the extra stuff, but I love just you. So let's be respectful of that speech when they share it with us.
Very fair. And if I read correctly, you do a lot of work with early relationships, right? Premarital counseling. Do you recommend that couples that are maybe on their second marriage or later in life getting married, do you recommend like premarital counseling for them or just for very young people?
I do, because at least with my program, there are different questions that we ask for someone that is the second time around, not because it's the second time around, but because they're older usually than they were when they got married the first time. So the very first time, we may not be talking about having a blended family, stepkids. How are you going to deal with different family members and all of that? Because you are anywhere between 19 to 29. Right? You're young. But that person who is now 45, you now are dealing with different aspects of what it means to be a family. So of course, there are different questions. There are things that you may not have talked about in the beginning. For example, who's the beneficiary to the properties that you may have? Do you have a will? Even though we ask that question of younger couples, it is something that needs to be addressed, especially because now we tend to be blending more households together, and so on and so forth. But absolutely, I think they should, just to make sure that they're on the same page. One of the questions we ask is dealing with finances. Have you discussed your finances? What do you want to do? Are you on the trajectory for what you want to achieve? If you're not, why not? What needs to change and what can you do? A question appropriate for both age groups, but it tends to be something that we discussed more as with those mature couples because they're in a different headspace.
Yeah, and as you say that, it makes me think about, couples with adult children getting married. And like, who's your medical power of attorney if something happens? Who's your financial power of attorney? Is it your oldest child or is it now your spouse? And you want to make sure you know those things before there's a need to know them.
Absolutely. And those are the types of conversations that we have for that second time or that mature couple. Many times with the mature couple, one of your children may not want you to get married again, right? And how do you deal with that? Of course, you don't have that problem when you're 23. You don't have any kids. So it's a totally different conversation for some areas of your life. But of course, there are always going to be those questions that are asked unilaterally that really spark further conversation, though they're spending their time with me and we're having our session. I also give homework so that the conversation can continue and that they can make note of it along the way until I see them the next time. So either use what you've learned today and tell me what was the result when I speak with you again, or your homework is about discovery. Now that I've asked the question, I've sparked the conversation, make note of your behaviors, your actions for the rest of the week, and tell me what you find.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Dr. Angela, what is your ideal client that you work with, and how might they find you?
Thank you so much for that question. So I deal with those that are faith-centered, even though I'm happy to help those that are not. But by and large, I help those that are faith-centered. When it comes to business or coaching, then those that are purpose-driven, meaning they are trying to get to a particular result. When it comes to spiritual wellness, you can be at any level, at any stage, meaning you've just become a person of faith, or you may be a person who is mature in faith, but you're trying to work through an issue according to your faith. People can find me in general if they go to drangela.chester.com, drangela.chester.com, and the links to all of the things that I do, the counseling, the TV, the radio, magazine, podcast, all that good stuff is there as well.
And we will make sure that all of those links are on the notes from this recording as well, because I think you have so much to offer. And I know that our listeners are going to be like, where can I find her?
Thank you. And I hope to continue to be a blessing to those who cross my path. That is part of my prayer every day, is that I am a blessing to those that I come across, but at the same time, I will be blessed by those who come along my path as well. So any way that I can help, I'm happy to.
Well, you are definitely a blessing to our listeners today, and I want to thank you for being here. And to our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Care to Lead podcast today. If you found this episode valuable and want to stay updated on our latest interviews and insights, remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And in the meantime, remember that leaders who care to lead. Thank you for tuning in.